Joe Raffelwitz from Greenpeace. Joe is the head of climate and energy. Growth and expansion of how people use AI in their lives has just been extraordinary, hasn't it?
60% of all the data centres in the world are being commissioned by the big four tech companies, and they're predominantly using these data centres for AI applications. So sometimes in Australia there's a data centre lobby group and they put out reports and press releases and they say things like, Australians need data centres so that we can use Canva and Zoom, some of the applications that people might be more familiar with in their day-to-day life, or Teams meetings. But that's just not true. Like, most of the data centre capacity is being used for AI. We already had internet banking before this data centre boom,
right.
So we clearly don't require new data centres to run what we have. But what they need the data centres for is to train the new large language model, the most energy-intensive thing of all, to train those new models, because it has to hoover up all that information they feed it and go through this.
And the build-out of data centres that you refer to here, we're very much mirroring what they're doing in the US, aren't we, in terms of these massive data centres? Is that correct?
We're probably one step behind them at this point. Like, we have a large number of data centres in Australia already, but we're really on the precipice of the big build-out, whereas the US was the site of the initial race.
Yeah.
And so under the Trump administration, they had even fewer guardrails than we're contemplating here. So they really had carte blanche to just build wherever, and especially to power them with fossil fuels. And so we saw in the US, many of these big tech companies that just a few years before the AI gold rush were talking about their sustainability credentials, commissioning fossil fuel gas plants to power their data centres. The effect of that in Australia, where we're trying to do this energy transition, we're trying to move to renewables, is that if you add all this extra load in Australia, it's an increase of 11% in our national electricity demand by 2035. So if you add all that new load, there's only so many renewable projects that we can actually build. Like, the sun is unlimited and wind is unlimited, but we know that you run into limits on, like, where do you locate this new facility? Do you have the capital to build it? Do you have the technical engineering and electricians available to build it? What that does is that it just prolongs the existing grid's generating assets. So we've already got coal and gas in the grid. That coal will be forced to stay on longer if we keep adding new demand. So part of the energy transition is not just build new renewables, it's reduce fossil fuels. And it's also try to use less electricity, which I think is something that gets lost in this kind of endless pursuit of economic growth and growth at all costs, is we should be trying to preserve resources if we can. I don't think that AI as a technology, and as I said, it's a very broad label, should be thrown in the bin because I'm a Luddite, but I do think that we should think seriously and interrogate every new resource-intense business that we're adding into our lives and our society, because it is zero-sum in some senses. Any water that you use on a data centre, even if it's recycled water, that's water that doesn't get used for environmental flows in the river system, or it doesn't get used to water parkland, let alone actual drinkable water, which is a whole other conversation. True. I get nervous at the breathlessness of our politicians, both in Victoria and federally, their keenness to just roll out the red carpet, come in, OpenAI, come in, let's get more AI. Why? I mean, who is actually benefiting from that AI rollout? There's a big hyperscale data centre in Sydney run by OpenAI that was marketed as enabling the Five Eyes Alliance to do security and intelligence applications. So data centres in Sydney will be hosting Trump's ICE immigration tracking software or weapons targeting systems for Palantir that are being used in Iran. We regulate Australian products that are exported overseas for use in defence and military applications. We assess whether they comply with our human rights framework, and yet we are using our resources in Australia, our water, our electricity that could power our homes or businesses, to potentially run software that's targeting civilians. We need to start thinking about data as not just some abstract thing that exists in the internet. We need to know what it is. We need to have some accountability for it. If you could choose, would you rather more water in our river systems or for farmers, or would you rather more water be spent on a new large language model being trained? But we never get to have that conversation because this assumption that the rollout of data centres and AI is a good idea.
And needed regardless of the costs. And that is something that we will be keeping an eye on. It's not going away.